Welcome to the Curious Room.
It's good to be here.
And it's really good to have you here with us. I want to just take a moment before we dive in, before we even touch the notes here on the table.
Right.
Usually when we do one of these deep dives, it's high energy.
Yeah.
We're in a bright studio. We've got coffee. We're trying to connect dots at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Trying to make you smarter, faster. Efficiency is usually the name of the game.
Exactly. But today's different. The source material we have in front of us, it just demands a different pace.
A slower pace.
A much slower pace.
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that we aren't in a studio. Imagine we're in a different space. Let's call it the Curious Room.
It's Curious Room. I like that.
And the lights are dimmed way, way down. Maybe there's just a single lamp on a desk somewhere. You can see bookshelves in the shadows. It's quiet. And it's late.
Or maybe it's very, very early. You know, it all depends on which side of sleep you happen to be standing on.
That's a great way to put it. And if you're listening to this specific deep dive, there's a pretty high chance you're awake when you didn't plan to be. Maybe you're on a long drive on a highway where you're the only pair of headlights. Or maybe you're just staring at your ceiling fan, watching it spin just a little too slowly.
You're sitting at the kitchen table, cup of tea getting cold, just wondering why your brain won't switch off.
Yeah. And I think we need to just validate that feeling.
Yeah.
Right away.
Absolutely. Being awake when the whole world seems to be asleep, it can feel incredibly lonely, like you've been left behind by the day.
It does. It feels like you've been forgotten or something.
Yeah.
So we want to just say right at the top, we see you. We aren't here to yell at you.
No.
We aren't here to give you 5 sleep hacks or tell you to buy special glasses.
Oh, please no. The last thing anyone needs at 3 in the morning is a lecture on sleep hygiene.
We're just here to keep you company. We're here to sit in the dark with you for a little while. The topic we're exploring today, it comes from a source text called The Weight of Midnight Thoughts. And when I first read that title, I felt it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a physical reaction.
It's visceral.
It is. It describes such a specific, heavy feeling that just descends on you the moment the clock ticks past midnight.
It's a fascinating phenomenon, isn't it? Because if you really think about it, objectively, nothing has changed.
Right.
The gravity of the Earth hasn't suddenly increased. Your problems haven't physically gained mass. The rent is the same price at 2 p.m. as it is at 2 a.m.
And yet,
at 2 in the morning, a thought that weighed maybe an ounce at noon, it suddenly feels like it weighs a ton. It can literally kin you to the mattress.
So our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's simple. We are not here to solve your problems. I want to be really clear about that.
That would be completely the wrong tone. It would imply there's something broken that needs fixing right now. And that urgency, that's part of the problem itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're here to explore this shared human experience. We're going to unpack very slowly and gently why nighttime changes our internal landscape.
We're going to look at the psychology, a little bit of the biology, and just the humanness of what the source calls the weight of midnight thoughts.
So my goal is to just be what the source calls a calm, thoughtful storyteller, to just walk through this with you using really simple language to understand why things feel so different when the sun goes down.
I like that, a calm storyteller.
So let's settle in, get comfortable wherever you are, and let's unpack this, but gently. Let's start with the first part of our notes, the universal weight.
Or, to put it another way, why you are definitely not the only one staring into the dark right now.
The source spends a good amount of time just describing that transition from day to night. It calls it a shift in atmosphere.
It's more than that, though, isn't it? It feels like more than just a change in the lighting.
It feels like a shift in the physics of the world. It really does.
It's a shift in our whole operational mode. I mean, think about your day. Think about what a typical Tuesday looks like for you or for anyone listening.
It's a barrage. It's just controlled chaos. You've got the alarm clock, the commute, the emails pinging, the notifications, the what are we having for dinner question, the news.
It's a constant stream of external input.
Exactly. You're reacting all day long.
It's transactional. We talk to convey information. We move to get things done. We're in output mode. But the source points out that at night, that whole transactional world it shuts down. The inputs stop.
The vibe it describes is this one. A late-night podcast conversation. Warm, curious, reassuring. But it also makes a point to say that this feeling of heaviness is common.
And that is such a vital word, common.
Why do you think that's so important to emphasize right at the start?
Because when you're lying there awake at 3 a.m., your brain loves to tell you a story.
Oh, yeah.
And the story is usually, I'm the only one failing at this. I'm the only one who can't just sleep. You imagine everyone else in the world is sleeping peacefully, having sweet dreams, and you're the only broken machine in the factory.
You feel totally isolated.
Completely.
Hmm.
But the source is reminding us right away. This is a universal human experience. It's not a disorder. It's not a malfunction. It is a natural reaction to a change in your environment.
Okay, let's talk about that environment. The source specifically mentions the absence of distraction.
This is the key. This is the whole mechanism, really. I like to call it the shield of noise.
The shield of noise. I like that. Explain what you mean.
Well, think about all that chaos you just described. The emails, the traffic, the music, the conversations. We tend to think of those things as stressors, and, they can be.
Yeah.
But they also act as a shield. They keep your attention pulled outward, away from yourself.
They keep the brain occupied.
They do. They occupy what neuroscientists call the task-positive network of your brain. You're focused on doing, on reacting, on navigating the world. You don't really have time to think about your deep existential dread because you're trying to merge onto the freeway without crashing.
It's a distraction from the self.
Precisely. But then the sun goes down. The traffic stops, the emails stop coming in, the family goes to sleep, and the shield, it comes down.
And the source talks about breathing space and natural pauses. When the external noise stops, that's when the internal noise becomes audible.
It's not just audible, it can be deafening.
Yeah.
And there's a biological reason for this. We can talk about the default mode network.
The DMN.
Right, so when the task-positive network, the part of your brain that gets stuff done, finally powers down, the default mode network, or DMN, it boots up. You can think of it as the brain's screensaver, but it's not a blank screen.
So what is it doing? What's on the screensaver?
It's the center of self-referential processing. It thinks about you. It replays your past. It worries about your future. It analyzes your relationships and your social standing and your regrets.
So during the day, I'm thinking about the spreadsheet I have to finish. But at night, the DMN kicks in, and suddenly I'm thinking about me and why I messed up that one cell on the spreadsheet and what that says about my fundamental worth as a human being.
That's it, exactly. And that brings us to the magnifying glass analogy from the source, which I think is just perfect.
Yeah, talk about that.
The thought you have at 2 in the morning might be the exact same thought you had at 2 in the afternoon. The content is identical. I'm worried about this upcoming project.
But the context is totally different.
Completely. At 2 p.m., that thought was a tiny speck on a table cluttered with 50 other things. At 2 a.m., the table is empty. The shield is gone, and suddenly your mind puts a giant magnifying glass on that one single speck.
And it looks like a boulder.
It dominates your entire field of vision. It's not that you necessarily have more thoughts at night. It's just that the competition for your attention has completely disappeared.
The source has this directive to include real-life feelings. Yeah. It wants us to be really honest about what this feels like, and it's uncomfortable.
It is. It's heavy. It can feel tight in your chest.
But the source also offers this really nice counter perspective, that the shared nature of it, that very commonality, offers a strange form of comfort.
It really does.
Just knowing that right now, as you're listening to this, there are millions of other people staring at their own ceilings, dealing with their own magnifying glasses. It takes the edge off that loneliness, doesn't it?
It connects us to the bigger story of being human. I mean, we are diurnal creatures. We evolved to be active and alert during the day and to rest at night. But we also evolved to be hyper-aware of danger when it's dark.
That's a really good point. Historically, darkness meant danger.
Absolutely. A rustle in the grass at noon is probably a rabbit. A rustle in the grass at midnight, that could be a lion. So when we're awake at night, our brains are literally primed to look for threats.
And in the modern world, the threat isn't a lion, it's an unpaid bill.
Or an awkward conversation you have to have tomorrow, or just the future. But the brain treats that uncertainty with the same life or death gravity.
We're using ancient hardware to process modern software.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So we've set the scene. The atmosphere shifts, the distractions fade. But the source gets more specific. It moves into section 2. The quiet impact of uncertainty.
Uncertainty. If there is a villain in this late night story, it is definitely uncertainty.
The text defines it as how uncertainty quietly affects thoughts and body. I want to linger on that word, quietly.
It's a crucial modifier. This isn't usually a full-blown panic attack. We're not talking about running down the street screaming.
No, it's much more subtle than that.
It's a creeping sensation. It's a heaviness that settles on you, almost like a weighted blanket that you never asked for.
And it's physical. The source makes a direct connection between the mental state and the body. It asks, how does uncertainty sit in your shoulders or in your chest at 2 a.m.?
I'd invite you, listening right now, to just do a quick scan of your body. No judgment. Just notice. Where are your shoulders? Are they up by your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Is your stomach in a knot?
For me, it's always my chest. It feels like someone is just sitting on it. A gentle pressure.
That's the biology of uncertainty at work. When the brain dislikes not knowing, and we'll get to why in a minute, it creates a low-level state of tension. It releases a slow drip of stress hormones, like cortisol. It's preparing you for something, but it doesn't know what that something is.
The notes describe this sensation of floating without answers. And that feels so accurate to the midnight experience. You feel untethered.
That's the perfect word for it, untethered. When you're floating, you have no ground to push against. You have no leverage. That is exactly what uncertainty feels like. You can't solve the problem because the problem isn't even clearly defined yet. You're just waiting in the void.
And the source makes this really important distinction between nighttime uncertainty and daytime uncertainty. Why does it feel so different? Why is the floating so much scarier in the dark?
Well, again, it comes back to agency. This is the critical difference. During the day, if you feel uncertain about something, let's say you're worried about a project at work, you have agency. You can take action.
You can send an email to a colleague.
Right.
You can do some more research. You can tweak the spreadsheet.
Action is the antidote to anxiety. Action resolves uncertainty. Even a small action tells your brain, okay, I am handling this. We're moving forward.
But at night,
you are stripped of all your agency. You are physically paralyzed by the social contract of the night.
right?
You can't call your boss at 3 a.m. You can't go out and fix the leaky roof in the pitch black. You can't have that difficult conversation with your partner while they're sound asleep next to you.
So all that anxious energy has nowhere to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have the stress, that physiological arousal, the cortisol, the clenched jaw, but you have blocked the response. You're revving the engine, but the car is in neutral. And that vibration, that engine noise without any movement, that is the weight.
That makes so much sense. You're just trapped in the gap between the problem and the solution.
And you have to just wait. You have to wait for the sun to come up before you can even begin to build a bridge across that gap.
So the source material is really insistent that we ground this. It doesn't want to just stay in these abstract ideas of agency and neurobiology. It wants real life. So in section 3, it gives us some simple everyday examples.
Bring it down to earth.
Yeah, we need to ground this abstract idea of heaviness. The source gives us 3 main buckets. Let's look at the first one. Example A, waiting.
Waiting. It's a profound source of midnight anxiety. The source mentions waiting for something specific, a text message, a date, some kind of change.
Oh, the unanswered text message.
Yeah.
That is a classic modern-day middle-of-the-night torture device.
It truly is. A tiny digital void.
Let's just paint the picture for a second. You sent a text earlier in the evening. Maybe it was to someone you have a crush on. Maybe it was an apology to a friend, something vulnerable.
Wow.
And now it's 1 a.m. and there is no reply.
And the silence is just, it's deafening.
In the daylight, your logical brain has all these perfect and reasonable explanations. Oh, they're driving. They must be in a movie. Their phone probably died.
But at midnight, the default mode network takes over. The magnifying glass comes out. And because the rest of the world is paused, your brain interprets that silence as deeply significant. A delayed reply at midnight doesn't mean they're busy.
It means they hate me.
It means I am annoying. It means I have permanently ruined this relationship and I will die alone.
We fill that narrative gap with our deepest, darkest insecurities. The uncertainty of waiting becomes a vacuum. And since nature abhors a vacuum, we just fill it with monsters.
And physically, what are you doing? You're checking the phone. The blue light hits your eyes, which makes sleep even harder. You see the 3 dots, and then they disappear.
The worst.
That roller coaster of dopamine and cortisol is absolutely exhausting. It's what's known as a variable reward schedule, which is the most addictive and anxiety-inducing pattern in all of psychology.
Okay, then there's example B, decisions. The source talks about how making a choice, any choice, feels momentous and paralyzed after midnight.
Yeah, we have to talk about something called decision fatigue here, or ego depletion.
Break that down for us in simple terms.
Think of your ability to make good, rational decisions like a battery in your phone. Every single time you make a choice during the day, what to wear, what to eat for breakfast, which email to answer first, whether to hit the brakes for that yellow light, you use up a little bit of that battery's charge.
And by midnight.
The battery is in the red. It's on 1%. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational, pros and cons part of your brain, is basically offline. It's exhausted.
But paradoxically, that is the exact moment we decide to tackle our biggest life problems.
It is. It's absurd when you think about it. We lie there in bed and think, okay, now's the time. Should I quit my job? Should we move across the country? Is this the right person for me? We bring the biggest, most complex questions to the table at the exact moment our brain is least equipped to handle them.
And it feels like you're standing at a fork in the road, but it's pitch black and you can't see where either path leads. So you just stand there.
And the feeling is paralysis. You just loop. You go over the same data points again and again and again. If I quit, I'll be happy, but I might be broke. But if I stay, I'll be secure, but I'll be miserable. Round and round you go.
It's not productive thinking. It's just mental friction.
It's like spinning your wheels in the mud. You're not moving forward an inch. You're just digging a deeper and deeper rut for yourself.
Which brings us to the third one, example C, the unknown future. This is the big one, the broad existential stuff.
This is the what comes next worry. It's not tied to a specific text message or a specific decision. It's about the entire trajectory of your life.
Am I on the right path? Is this all there is? What if something terrible happens to someone I love?
At night, the horizon disappears. And this is a really important metaphor. During the day, you can see the horizon. You can see the future in a way. You can see your calendar for tomorrow. You can make plans.
You lose all perspective.
Literally and metaphorically. Your visual field is limited to the four walls of your bedroom, and so is your mental field. The brain struggles to simulate a positive future when it's surrounded by darkness and silence. This is called prospection mental time travel. But at night, prospection almost always turns into catastrophizing.
We just jump straight to the worst case scenario.
We do. Because, going back to that evolutionary point, it is always safer to imagine a lion in the dark and be wrong than to imagine a bunny rabbit and be wrong. Pessimism is a survival strategy. But at 2 a.m., when you're lying in a safe, warm bed, that survival strategy just feels like impending doom.
It's interesting. The source has a specific rule about how we're supposed to talk about this stuff. It says simplicity of language. It explicitly tells us to use lame, simple English.
I noticed that. Lame is a funny word to choose, but the intent behind it is crystal clear.
It is. It says to avoid academic jargon. So even though we just mentioned ego depletion and prospection, the source really wants us to translate that.
So instead of cognitive load, we should just be saying heavy thought.
And instead of future-oriented anxiety, we just say worrying about tomorrow.
Why do you think that's so important? Why the insistence on keeping the language so simple?
I think it goes right back to that battery analogy. If you're listening to this at 2 in the morning, your processing power is low. You are tired. If we start throwing complex psychological terms at you or trying to sound impressive with our vocabulary, we're asking your already tired brain to work even harder.
We're adding to the load instead of lightening it.
Exactly. We want to lower the barrier to understanding. Simple, clear words can resonate so much deeper when you're exhausted. Words like, you are tired, it is dark, you are safe. Those are primal. They cut through the noise.
That's a really good point. We're not trying to lecture you. We're trying to comfort you with clarity. We're respecting your tired state.
So we've looked at the examples. We've felt the weight. Now let's get into the mechanics of it. Section 4, the brain and the unknown.
Right. Here's where we get to the why, the core conflict at the heart of all this.
Why does our brain do this to us? Why can't we just shut down like a laptop at the end of the day? Why do we have to run all these terrible simulations?
The source points out that the brain simply dislikes not knowing. It sounds incredibly simple, but it is a fundamental core rule of neurology.
We're pattern-seeking machines. That's what we do.
It's what we are. Our survival for millions of years has depended on our ability to recognize patterns. Rustling grass could mean a predator, red berries could mean food, dark clouds could mean rain. We crave answers because answers allow us to prepare for the future.
But midnight is a time of lack.
Yes. A total lack of information, lack of light, lack of noise, lack of immediate answers. It's a sensory void. And the brain absolutely hates a void.
So it starts scrambling. It's trying to find a pattern in the static.
It's exactly like when you stare at a textured ceiling in a dark room. After a while, your eyes will start to make shapes out of the bumps and shadows. You'll see a face, or a map, or a monster. That's a phenomenon called pareidolia.
And we do that with our emotions, too.
We do it with everything. We take the random static of our lives, a weird look from a coworker, a vague pain in our side, an unanswered text, and at night we desperately try to weave it into a coherent story. And it's usually a scary story.
Why a scary one?
Because a scary story is still better than no story at all. A scary story, at least, gives us something to focus on, something to prepare for. Nothingness is what's truly terrifying to the brain.
Okay, so the source suggests a shift in strategy here. And this feels like the real pivot point of this whole deep dive. It says, use gentle curiosity instead of strong conclusions.
This is beautiful, and it is very, very hard to do in practice.
Unpack that for us. What's the real difference between a strong conclusion and gentle curiosity when you're in that state?
A strong conclusion is an attempt to end the uncertainty by force. It's slamming down a judgment. He hasn't texted back, therefore he's not interested and I've been rejected. That is a conclusion. It feels solid. It stops the frantic spinning.
But it's almost always a painful conclusion.
It's painful, and it's often wrong. But the brain would rather have a painful certainty than a painless uncertainty.
So what does curiosity look like instead?
Curiosity is open. It's softer. It's a step back. It sounds like, he hasn't texted back. I notice that I'm feeling anxious about that. That's interesting. I wonder why my mind is going there right now.
It's a diffusion technique.
It is. You step back from the thought itself. You stop being the person having the crisis, and you become the person who is watching your brain try to create a crisis. You become the observer of your own mind.
So instead of telling yourself, I need to stop worrying, which is a command, and usually fails,
you just gently say, oh, look, there's my brain doing that worrying thing again. Because it's dark outside, and because it doesn't know the future, and that's what brains do.
it completely changes your relationship to the thought. You're not trying to fight it or wrestle it to the ground. You're just sitting next to it.
The source suggests that the real deep dive here is about observing the mechanism of your own brain without judging it. This is just what brains do in the dark. It doesn't mean my life is actually falling apart. It just means my default mode network is active and bored.
And that curiosity leads to peace because it doesn't demand an immediate solution. Which transitions us perfectly to our next section, gentle reflection, not solutions.
This is such a critical pivot in the source material, and I think it might be the most important thing for anyone listening right now to really hear.
The instruction is so explicit. Gentle reflection, not solutions.
We live in a solution-obsessed culture. Every problem has to be fixed. Every discomfort needs to be medicated or hacked or optimized away.
Crush your goals, own the morning, that kind of thing.
But the source is saying, no, not tonight. Tonight is not the time for that.
Why is that motivational speech energy so wrong for this specific moment?
Because it creates resistance and shame. If you're lying there at 3 a.m. feeling crushed under the weight of these thoughts, and someone comes in shouting, you can do it, get up and grind, it just feels jarring. It feels aggressive.
It feels dismissive of the heaviness you're actually feeling.
It does. It makes you feel like a failure for not being able to just fix yourself instantly. And on a practical level, you can't fix your life at 3 a.m. You're tired. Your emotional regulation is low. Trying to force a solution when you're exhausted usually just leads to bad solutions.
So what's the alternative? If we're not supposed to be fixing, what are we doing?
We're accepting. The big so what insight here is that the value of this experience might just be in the reflection itself, not in what you do after.
The source says the story should feel human, comforting, and reflective.
There's a concept in Japanese aesthetics called mono no aware. It translates roughly to the pathos of things. It's this gentle, poignant sadness at the transience of life. It's not depression, it's just a quiet acknowledgement of the weight of existence.
That sounds a lot like Midnight.
It's the perfect description of it. The source is essentially giving us permission. It is okay to just sit with these thoughts. The weight doesn't have to be crushed. It doesn't have to be thrown off. For now, it can just be carried for a moment.
That's a huge relief, honestly.
Yeah.
Just to be told, you don't have to figure this all out right now.
It's the ultimate permission slip. Permission to just be. You can be uncertain, you can be worried, you can be awake. And that's okay. You're not failing at sleep. You're just succeeding at being awake for a little while.
So let's look at our final section here, section 6, integration and tone check. We're kind of looking back at the map of what we've just covered.
The narrative arc of the night.
We started with that emotional hook, that very specific midnight feeling. We tried to validate it. Then we moved to the physical sensation of uncertainty, the floating, the tension in the body.
We looked at those common examples, the agony of waiting, the paralysis of deciding, the fear of the future. We tried to normalize them.
Then we look at the brain's motivation, why it hates the unknown and tries to fill the void with scary stories.
And we landed on acceptance, on choosing gentle curiosity instead of forcing hard conclusions.
It's a logical flow, but it's a very gentle flow. It doesn't ramp up in intensity, it actually winds down. It decelerates.
And the source asks us to visualize the space one more time. The curious room.
I imagine it's even dimmer now. Maybe a candle is burned down a bit.
It's a place for a late-night podcast conversation. And notice the constraints the source put on us from the beginning. No lecture, no teaching.
No podium.
No podium. That's key. We're not standing above you delivering a lesson. We're sitting right here next to you. One person thinking out loud with the listener.
And as we get to the very end of our time together, we need to honor that final instruction.
A calm ending.
We are not going to summarize a list of action items. We are not going to give you any homework.
Please, no homework at this hour, no lists, no 5-step plans.
We just want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over, something open-ended that you can just hold in the dark for a bit.
If we tie this all together, if we accept that the brain naturally dislikes not knowing, and that dislike is what causes this midnight wait, then perhaps the practice of the night isn't about trying to force the sun to come up any sooner.
What is it then?
Perhaps the practice is simply learning to be okay with the quiet questions. Perhaps the victory isn't in finding the answer. Perhaps the real victory is lying in the dark, with the question just hanging there, completely unanswered, and realizing that you are still okay.
To be okay with not knowing. To let the sentence hang unfinished in the air.
Exactly. To find a little bit of peace in the space between the question and the answer.
That feels like a very powerful place to land.
It is.
Thank you for sharing the silence with us.
It was a privilege.
We acknowledge the weight of your midnight thoughts. We see them. And we hope, just maybe, they feel a little lighter now that we've looked at them together. Rest well.